The lighthouse beam went dark at exactly 11:47 p.m. Sarah Brooks noticed because she had spent 12 years watching it turn. Every 22 seconds, the white blade crossed the windows of Channel 8's coastal weather station, swept over the black Atlantic, and vanished behind the cliffs. It had done so through snowstorms, hurricanes, power failures, and the night Sarah's mother died. But now, with a storm 3 hours offshore, and no warning from the Coast Guard, the light stopped. Sarah stood alone before the studio's glass weather wall, one hand resting on the edge of the desk. Behind her, radar images painted the darkened room in shades of red and violet. The storm on the screen did not make sense. Its pressure was dropping too quickly. The outer bands had shifted north without any corresponding change in the jet stream. The computer model predicted landfall near Portland. Sarah knew it was wrong. The storm was turning toward Black Harbor, toward the lighthouse. A soft metallic click sounded behind her. She turned. A man in a raincoat stood inside the locked studio. He held a gun. Sarah's heartbeat struck once against her ribs, hard enough to hurt. "You're working late," the man said. His face was pale beneath the fluorescent lights. Water dripped from his coat onto the floor. Sarah kept her voice steady. The door was locked. Not anymore. He glanced at the weather wall. Delete the forecast. She looked toward the emergency button beneath the desk. Too far. The station already uploaded it. No, it didn't. Sarah's eyes moved to the red network icon on the monitor. Disconnected. The man had cut the transmission. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to stop telling people where the storm is going. That is literally my job." His gun lifted. "This storm is not going to Black Harbor." "It is." "You're wrong." "I'm not." His expression tightened. Sarah had spent years being underestimated by men who assumed confidence belonged only to people who looked like them. She had learned to recognize the moment disbelief became anger. This man had reached it. "You changed the offshore buoys," she said. His eyes flickered. That was enough. Sarah continued carefully. Station 12 began transmitting false pressure readings at 6:15. Station 14 followed 40 minutes later. "Someone is trying to make the shipping channel look safer than it is." The man stepped closer. "You should have ignored it. What is moving through that channel?" He did not answer. A low rumble shook the studio windows. Naught thunder. Engines. Sarah looked past him. 3 black SUVs emerged from the rain and stopped outside the station. Their headlights cut through the parking lot. The gunman turned toward the glass. Men in dark suits stepped out. The center door of the second SUV opened. Luca Moretti emerged into the storm. Sarah knew his face. Everyone on the Maine coast did. Officially, Luca owned shipping terminals, luxury hotels, and half the private marinas between Boston and Halifax. Unofficially, his family controlled every criminal route that mattered along the northeastern seaboard. He was 39, tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a black overcoat that moved around him in the wind. He carried no umbrella. He did not need one. The armed men around him made the rain itself seem obedient. The intruder cursed and grabbed Sarah by the arm. She twisted against him. "Move." He dragged her toward the rear exit. The studio doors exploded inward. Luca entered through falling glass. He did not shout. He did not run. He simply raised a pistol and fired once. The gunman's weapon fell from his hand. He collapsed beside Sarah. She stumbled backward, staring at the blood spreading across the floor. Luca crossed the room and caught her before she fell. His arm closed around her waist. For one strange second, they stood in the storm-lit studio with the radar flashing behind them. His eyes moved over her face, her shoulders, her hands, checking for injuries. "You're bleeding," he said. Sarah looked down. A piece of glass had cut her palm. "That man was shot. He was going to kill you. You don't know that." Luca's gaze settled on her. "I know exactly what he came here to do." Outside, thunder rolled over the ocean. Sarah pulled her hand away from him. What are you doing here? His expression did not change. Buying the lighthouse. She stared at him. What? The transfer was completed 9 minutes ago. The lighthouse belongs to the town. Not anymore. You bought a municipal lighthouse in the middle of the night? Yes. Why? Luca looked toward the dead beam beyond the cliffs. Because you were correct about the storm. Sarah's fear sharpened. What does that have to do with the lighthouse? Everything. He turned to one of his men. Seal the station. Take every hard drive. No police. Sarah stepped between them. You are not taking station property. Luca looked down at her. Even in heels, she had to tilt her head slightly to meet his gaze. Move. No. The men behind him went silent. Sarah saw surprise pass across several faces. Apparently, people did not tell Luca Moretti no. He came closer. The space between them disappeared, but he did not touch her. You have 6 armed men approaching through the woods, he said quietly. A storm designed to blind coastal radar, a dead lighthouse, and a gunman bleeding at your feet. His eyes held hers. This is not the moment to protect company equipment. Then explain what is happening. I will. When? When you are somewhere I can keep you alive. I am not going anywhere with you. The first bullet struck the studio window. Luca moved before the glass broke. He pulled Sarah against his chest and turned, covering her with his body as gunfire tore through the weather wall. The radar display shattered. His men returned fire through the darkness. Luca guided Sarah toward the hallway, one arm locked around her. Stay down. I can walk. Then walk faster. They reached the rear stairwell as another burst of bullets ripped through the studio. Sarah heard someone shout outside. Luca pushed open the service door. Rain struck her face. The parking lot had become a battlefield. Headlights glowed through sheets of water. Men fired from behind concrete barriers. One SUV was already burning. Luca lifted Sarah into his arms. She gasped. Put me down. No. I am perfectly capable of running. You're wearing heels. That is not a medical condition. A bullet struck the wall near his shoulder. Luca tightened his hold and carried her through the storm. His coat wrapped partly around her body. She could feel the hard tension in his chest and the control in every step. The most dangerous man on the coast held her as if dropping her, were the only mistake he feared making. He placed her inside an armored SUV and followed. The door slammed shut. Sarah reached for the opposite handle. It locked. She turned on him. You cannot force me into a car. I just did. This is kidnapping. This is evacuation. Without consent. Luca removed his wet gloves. You may file a complaint when no one is trying to shoot you. The convoy sped away from the station. Sarah looked through the rear window as the burning SUV disappeared into rain. Where are we going? The lighthouse. She laughed once in disbelief. The lighthouse with no light? The safest structure on this coast. It is a stone tower on an exposed cliff. It has tunnels beneath it. Sarah stared at him. How do you know that? His silence disturbed her more than an answer would have. The road narrowed as they climbed toward Black Harbor Point. Lightning illuminated the lighthouse ahead. It rose from the cliff like a white bone against the black sea. The main house beside it was dark, but armed men moved around the perimeter. Generator lights shone through the rain. 2 helicopters sat in a fenced field below the ridge. Sarah looked at Luca. You planned this. I prepare for predictable failures. This attack was predictable. You were predictable. The words landed strangely. What does that mean? You found the false buoy readings. Any competent meteorologist could have found them. They didn't. I was working late. You always work late when pressure drops more than 12 millibars in 6 hours. Sarah went still. Luca looked out the window. She studied his profile. How do you know that? He did not answer. The SUV stopped beneath the lighthouse tower. Luca opened the door. Sarah remained seated. I am not moving until you tell me why you know my work habits. Rain blew inside. Luca leaned down, one hand resting on the roof of the vehicle. His face was close to hers. I have watched every weather report you have delivered for 6 years. Sarah forgot the rain. You what? Get out of the car. No, Sarah. It was the first time he had spoken her name. The quiet familiarity of it unsettled her. You have been watching me. Yes. Why? Because your forecasts are not forecasts. She stared at him. What are they? Codes. Inside the lighthouse keeper's house, Sarah found a command center hidden beneath the appearance of an old coastal residence. Antique maps hung beside digital surveillance screens. The kitchen contained emergency supplies for weeks. A steel door led to a staircase descending beneath the cliffs. Luca's men moved with efficient silence. A doctor cleaned the cut on Sarah's palm. She refused pain medication and demanded to see the radar feed. Luca stood across the room, speaking to a man named Gabriel Russo, his chief of security. The storm shifted another 8 degrees, Gabriel said. 2 vessels left international waters 20 minutes ago. Namis, both registered to Vale Maritime. Sarah looked up. Vale Maritime operates humanitarian freight. Luca's expression was cold. Vale Maritime moves weapons beneath humanitarian flags. She approached the screen. 2 cargo vessels appeared as faint green points beyond the storm. They are entering the blind zone. Yes. The manipulated buoys make the route appear clear. Yes. And the storm hides them from aerial surveillance. Luca nodded. Sarah stared at the pattern. This has happened before. 40. 3 times in 11 years. She turned toward him. How many times did I forecast those storms? 17. The room seemed to narrow. Why are my broadcasts connected to weapons shipments? Luca motioned toward a wall monitor. A recording began to play. Sarah appeared on screen wearing a navy dress, standing before a weather map from 3 years earlier. The northern front will weaken by midnight, her recorded voice said. Expect a narrow clearing near Gull Point shortly before dawn. The video stopped. A second screen displayed shipping records. A vessel entered Gull Point at 4:12 a.m. Another recording played. Wind direction may change unexpectedly near St. Michael's Bay. A cargo ship altered course at St. Michael's Bay 6 hours later. Sarah shook her head. I report meteorological data. You also use phrases no other forecaster uses. They are regional descriptions. They are instructions. That is impossible. Luca selected another clip. Sarah's younger face appeared. Her first year at Channel 8. When the gulls turn inland before sunset, the harbor will close its eyes. She watched herself and felt a chill. Her mother used to say that, not as a weather phrase, as a bedtime warning during storms. What does that mean? Luca asked. Sarah could not answer. He came closer. Who taught you those expressions? My mother. What was her name? Evelyn Brooks. Gabriel looked at Luca. Something passed between them. Sarah saw it. What? Luca's voice became quieter. Your mother's name was not Evelyn Brooks. Anger flared through Sarah. Do not tell me who my mother was. She was Elena Bianchi. The name meant nothing. That frightened her. She worked as an intelligence operative inside maritime smuggling networks from Boston to Palermo. Luca continued. She disappeared 18 years ago after creating a communication system based on weather language. My mother was a coastal researcher. She became one after leaving the field. She died in a boating accident. No. The word struck the room silent. Sarah's hands curled. What are you saying? Luca held her gaze. Your mother was murdered. Sarah stepped back. No. She discovered someone inside her network had sold the weather cipher to rival families. She tried to destroy it. They found her first. No. The accident report was fabricated. You are lying. I do not lie to you. The certainty in his voice made her furious. You kidnapped me, bought a lighthouse, and admitted to watching me for 6 years. Forgive me if I do not consider you trustworthy. A muscle moved in Luca's jaw. You should not trust me. Then why should I believe you? Because the man who broke into your station used the phrase, "The harbor will close its eyes," before he entered. Sarah froze. How do you know? We intercepted his radio. She turned back to the weather recordings. Her mother's phrases. Her own broadcasts. Shipping routes hidden inside storms. Without knowing it, Sarah had inherited a language people used to move weapons. What do they want from me? To complete the cipher. I do not know it. You know more than you realize. Luca's gaze moved over her face. That is why they will keep coming. The storm made landfall shortly after 2 in the morning. Wind hammered the lighthouse. Waves crashed against the cliff with enough force to shake the windows. Sarah stood inside the lantern room, at the top of the tower, watching Luca's men repair the light mechanism. He had ordered her to remain in the keeper's house. She ignored him. The door opened behind her. You were told not to come up here, Luca said. Sarah did not turn. I do not work for you. No. You also do not own me. No. You bought this lighthouse because of me. Yes. She faced him. Rainwater darkened his hair. He had removed his overcoat, leaving him in a black shirt rolled at the sleeves. Why this lighthouse? It was your mother's relay station. Sarah looked around. The old brass machinery. The windows facing every direction. The narrow iron staircase descending into darkness. She worked here for 3 years. How do you know? My father worked with her. The answer changed the air. Your father was mafia. Yes. And my mother was intelligence. Yes. They were enemies. Sometimes. Sarah folded her arms. What does that mean? It means the world you believe is divided into good people and criminals is less orderly than you want it to be. I do not believe that. You still look at me as though I am the only dangerous man in the room. You usually are. A faint shadow of amusement touched his face. It vanished quickly. Sarah looked toward the dark sea. Was your father involved in her death? No. You answered too quickly. Because I have asked myself that question every day for 18 years. She studied him. Guilt lived beneath his calm expression. What happened? Luca moved to the window. My father discovered someone was using Eleanor's cipher to transport military weapons through civilian ports. He tried to help her expose the network. And they were betrayed. By whom? I do not know. Sarah looked at the lighthouse mechanism. But you think I can find out? Yes. You have been watching my broadcasts because you believed I was sending messages. At first, the words made her turn. And later? Luca said nothing. The wind screamed around the glass. Sarah walked closer. You said you watched every report for 6 years. Yes, even when there were no unusual storms. Yes. Why? His gaze lowered briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. I stopped needing a reason. The honesty unsettled her. Do you expect that to sound romantic? No. It sounds obsessive. It is. Sarah's pulse changed. Luca stepped closer, but stopped before touching her. I knew when you cut your hair. I knew when you stopped wearing the blue earrings your mother gave you. I knew when you were pretending to smile during broadcasts because Charles Whitmore had reduced your airtime. Her breath caught. How do you know about Charles? I know everyone who has ever made you unhappy. That is not normal. No. Did you threaten him? Not yet. She should have been terrified. Part of her was. Another part, one she did not trust, felt seen in a way no one had ever seen her before. Not because of her body, not because of the polished image the station demanded, because Luca had noticed the silences between her words. You cannot watch someone for years and call it protection, she said. I have not called it anything. What would you call it? His expression hardened, as if the answer itself were dangerous. A weakness. The lighthouse light came back on. Its beams swept across them. For one instant, Luca's face was illuminated in white. Then darkness returned. Sarah looked away first. The next morning, Charles Whitmore called. His face appeared on a secure video screen in the lighthouse command room. Silver-haired and dignified, Charles had been the director of Channel 8 for 20 years. He had hired Sarah after college and defended her when consultants suggested replacing her with someone more traditionally marketable. He had attended every memorial service for her mother. He called Sarah his family. "My God," he said when he saw her. "Are you hurt?" "I'm safe. Where are you?" Sarah glanced at Luca. His expression warned her. "I cannot tell you." Charles's eyes shifted. "Is Moretti there?" "Yes." "Sarah, listen to me carefully. Luca Moretti is not protecting you. He is using you." Luca stood across the room, arms folded. Charles continued. "The FBI contacted me. They believe Moretti arranged the attack on the station to frighten you into helping him. Why would he do that? Because the storm routes are connected to his family's shipping empire." Sarah looked at Luca. He did not react. "Do not give him anything," Charles said. "I can get you out. There is a Coast Guard rescue team waiting near Black Harbor." Luca ended the call. Sarah turned on him. "I was not finished. He was tracing the signal. He was trying to help me. He was trying to locate you. You do not know that. I know the transmission activated 3 offshore receivers." Sarah stepped closer. "Charles raised me professionally. He employed you. He was there after my mother died. So was I." The words stopped her. "What?" Luca looked away. Sarah moved into his line of sight. "What do you mean?" "I was at the harbor the night they recovered her boat." She stared at him. "You were 21. "Yes." "Why were you there?" "My father sent me to find Elena before the network did." "And you failed." His face became still. "Yes." Sarah immediately regretted the cruelty of the words. Luca did not defend himself. He simply accepted them. That made it worse. "I'm sorry," she said. "You should not be. I said it to hurt you. You succeeded." His calm voice carried no accusation. Sarah saw then how deeply he had buried the past. Luca did not fear pain. He expected it. Before she could say more, alarms sounded. Gabriel entered. 3 boats approaching from the southern cove. Luca drew his weapon. "Take Sarah below." "No," Sarah said. He looked at her. "The lighthouse controls the coastal warning sirens. If the boats are entering through the cove, I can redirect them toward the reef. You are going below. I know these waters better than your men. Sarah, trust me." The word held him, only for a second. Then he nodded. "Stay beside me." They climbed to the signal room beneath the lantern. Rain blurred the windows. 3 boats moved through the black water below, their navigation lights off. Sarah activated the old foghorn system. The sound will make them think the channel markers shifted. Gabriel looked doubtful. "Will it? If they are using my mother's code, they will follow the second signal." She sounded the horn twice, paused, then once. The first boat altered course. The others followed. They moved directly toward the submerged reef. Gunfire erupted from the water. Bullets struck the lighthouse glass. Luca threw Sarah to the floor and covered her. The window shattered above them. Wind and rain filled the room. One of Luca's men fell. Luca fired through the broken glass. A helicopter appeared beyond the storm, sweeping the sea with white light. The boats turned back, but one launched a grappling line toward the cliff. "Men on the eastern stairs," Gabriel warned. Luca pulled Sarah toward the spiral staircase. Down. They descended as gunmen climbed from below. At the landing, Luca pushed Sarah behind the stone wall and exchanged fire through the iron railing. A bullet struck his arm. Sarah saw the blood. "Luca, stay back." The gunman advanced. Sarah noticed an old counterweight lever beside the lighthouse lens mechanism. Her mother had shown it to her once when she was a child. Emergency release. Sarah pulled it. A massive iron weight dropped through the central shaft. The cable snapped across the staircase, tearing part of the lower railing away. 2 gunmen fell into the darkness. Luca looked at her. "You disobey extremely well. You're welcome." He almost smiled. Then another attacker appeared behind Sarah. Luca crossed the distance and struck the man before Sarah could turn. The fight was fast and brutal. When it ended, Luca stood over the attacker with blood on his hands. Sarah stared. Luca saw her expression and stepped back. He would have killed you. I know. You are afraid of me. Yes. His face closed. Sarah came closer. I am also alive because of you. That does not make me safe. No. She looked at his bleeding arm. But it makes you more than one thing. Something shifted in his eyes. Sarah tore a strip from the hem of a canvas cover and tied it around his wound. Luca watched her fingers. You should not touch me when you are frightened. Why? Because I may misunderstand. Her hands still. What would you misunderstand? That you want me close. The storm roared around them. Sarah lifted her eyes. And if I do? His control broke for one breath. Then, Gabriel entered. More boats coming. The moment vanished. Forced proximity inside the lighthouse changed them slowly. For 4 days, the storm trapped everyone on Black Harbor Point. Sarah studied her mother's old meteorological journals, which Luca had recovered from a private Moretti archive. At first, the entries appeared ordinary wind speeds, pressure readings, tide cycles. Then she noticed the irregularities. Certain cloud descriptions corresponded to shipping routes. Barometric drops represented dates. Wind directions identified ports. Lightning intervals marked cargo categories. The weather was not simply hiding the network. It was speaking for it. Luca worked beside her, in the old map room. He rarely slept. He drank coffee black and stood at the windows whenever the wind became violent. Sarah learned that storms made him restless because his father had died during one. He learned she hummed when close to solving a pattern. Neither commented on how often they found themselves watching the other. On the 5th night, Sarah decoded a message hidden in one of her own forecasts. North Star falls at dawn. Daughter returns to light. The message had aired 3 weeks earlier. Sarah felt sick. They used my broadcast to summon me. Luca read the phrase, or warn you. Who? He pointed to the word daughter. Your mother's original network used family designations. Daughter may refer to you. Light may refer to the lighthouse. Then someone knew I would find the false buoy data. Yes. Someone inside the station. Yes. Sarah thought of producers, engineers, editors. Charles. She rejected the thought immediately. Luca saw it happen. You suspect him? No. You thought of him. He loved my mother. Did he? He never married because of her. That proves nothing. Sarah stood. You see betrayal everywhere. Because it is usually there. That is not wisdom. It is damage. The words struck harder than she intended. Luca's face became unreadable. You are correct. He turned away. Sarah watched him cross the room. She had expected anger. His quiet acceptance hurt more. Luca. He stopped. I did not mean. You meant exactly what you said. He looked back. And you were right. Later that night, Sarah found him outside in the rain. He stood near the cliff edge without a coat, staring at the Black Sea. She approached with a blanket. You will freeze. I have survived worse. That is not a reason to keep trying. She placed the blanket around his shoulders. Luca's hand caught the edge near hers. Their fingers almost touched. Why are you here? He asked. Because you looked lonely. I am not lonely. You bought an entire lighthouse for a woman you watched on television for 6 years. His gaze sharpened. That was tactical. Of course. You are smiling. I am not. You are. Sarah stepped beside him. For several minutes, they listened to waves strike the rocks. My mother used to bring me here, she said. She told me the lighthouse was proof that even warnings could be beautiful. Luca looked at her. She was right. Sarah felt the meaning beneath the words. She turned toward him. You hardly knew me when you began watching. I knew enough. What did you know? That you refused to change your accent when the station asked. That you corrected a senator live on air when he misrepresented hurricane funding. That you wore the same red coat for 4 winters because it made you happy. Sarah smiled faintly. You noticed the coat. I noticed everything. His hand rose. He brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek. The touch was slow, restrained, almost reverent. Sarah's breath caught. Luca's thumb lingered near her jaw. Then he pulled away. Why did you stop? She asked. Because wanting you is not the same as having permission. The answer went through her. Before she could respond, a flare rose over the harbor. Red light illuminated the cliff. Gabriel ran from the house. We have a survivor in the cove. They found a wounded man among the rocks. He wore a Coast Guard uniform. But his identification was false. Before he died, he grabbed Sarah's wrist. Whitmore knows, he whispered. Then he was gone. Sarah stared at the body. Luca did not say I told you so. That made it harder. The next morning, Charles appeared at the lighthouse. He arrived in a Coast Guard helicopter with 2 federal agents and a court order declaring Sarah a material witness. Luca's men raised weapons. The helicopter blades churned rain across the landing field. Charles stepped out with his hands visible. Sarah, he called. Come away from him. She stood beside Luca near the lighthouse door. Charles looked older than he had on screen. Terrified. Did you know my mother's real name? Sarah asked. His face changed. That was enough. She felt something inside her crack. Yes, he said. How long? Since before you were born. Luca's hand moved near Sarah's back but did not touch her. Charles took a step forward. Your mother trusted me. Did she? Yes. Then why did you lie to me? To keep you safe. Sarah laughed bitterly. Everyone keeps saying that. Charles glanced at Luca. You think he is different? No, Sarah said. But he admits what he is. Charles's expression tightened. The Moretti family used Elena. My father tried to save her, Luca said. Your father profited from the roots she exposed. And you sold them. Silence followed. Charles looked at Luca with hatred. Sarah's stomach turned. You were the traitor. Charles shook his head. It was more complicated. It always is when cowards explain themselves. Pain flashed across his face. I loved your mother. You betrayed her. I tried to protect you after she died. You used my broadcasts. Charles looked toward the sea. The network was already using fragments of the cipher. I controlled what I could. By placing you at the station, I could monitor which phrases resurfaced. You placed me there? I gave you a career. I earned my career. Yes, he said quickly. You did. But I made sure no one removed you. Sarah felt fury rise through grief. You kept me visible because my mother's enemies were watching. I kept you where I could protect you. No. You kept me where you could use me. Charles stepped closer. The Vale family has a ship carrying enough weapons to start a war between 3 criminal alliances. If that shipment reaches shore, hundreds will die. And you helped move it. I had no choice. There is always a choice. Not when they have your son. Zara froze. Charles closed his eyes. I have a child. A boy. He is 12. Vale has held him for 6 months. The revelation shifted the ground beneath the confrontation. Sarah saw the desperation in Charles's face. Luca remained unmoved. You should have come to me, he said. Charles laughed bitterly. To a mafia boss? To the man already at war with Vale. You would have used him as leverage. No. Charles looked at Sarah. You believe him? Sarah did not answer. Luca's expression hardened. Charles continued. Vale will release my son if I bring Sarah to the offshore station. Her voice activates the final cipher sequence. Sarah looked at Luca. The final sequence does what? Luca's voice was cold. Opens every hidden route Elena created. Charles nodded. With Sarah's voice, Vale can move anything through the Atlantic without detection. Sarah understood then. She was not merely the decoder. She was the authorization key. Charles held out his hand. "Come with me." "And a child lives." Luca stepped in front of her. "No." Charles raised a remote. A video appeared on his phone. A boy sat bound inside a shipping container. A countdown showed 2 hours. Sarah's heart clenched. "Luca." "No. He is a child. It is a trap. I know. You are not going." Sarah looked at his back. "You do not decide." His shoulders went rigid. Charles watched them. Sarah stepped around Luca. "You told me wanting me was not the same as having permission." Luca's eyes locked onto hers. "This is not about permission. It is exactly about that. If you go, Vale will never let you leave. Then help me make sure he does not have a choice." Luca's face changed. Not anger. Fear. Pure and unguarded. "I cannot lose you." The confession silenced everyone. Sarah moved closer. "You do not have me by keeping me locked in a lighthouse." "I know." "Then trust me." His jaw tightened. For several seconds, Luca Moretti looked like a man standing at the edge of something he could not control. Finally, he nodded. "We do it together." The plan required Sarah to appear cooperative. Charles would deliver her to an abandoned offshore weather station 12 miles from the coast. Luca's men would follow beneath the storm in unmarked boats. Gabriel would locate Charles's son. Before leaving, Sarah stood inside the lighthouse lantern room. Luca entered behind her. The restored beam turned around them. "You should wear this," he said. He handed her a small silver pendant. "What is it?" "A transmitter." She fastened it around her neck. Luca's fingers brushed the clasp. His hands were steady, but his breathing was not. "If the signal disappears," he said, "I come for you. That is the plan." "No." He turned her gently. His gaze was intense enough to make the room feel smaller. "If every man on that station is armed, I come for you. If Charles changes the route, I come for you. If you tell me not to, I come for you." Sarah's pulse raced. "That sounds less like trust. It is the limit of what I can give." She studied him. "Then give me one more thing." "What?" "The truth." He waited. Sarah touched his chest. "Did you fall in love with me before we met?" Luca went still. The lighthouse beam crossed his face. "Yes." The answer was barely audible. "How?" "I do not know. That is not an answer. It is the only honest one." His hand closed around hers. "I watched you stand in front of storms and tell frightened people what would happen next. You never made fear larger than it was. You never made yourself smaller to make anyone comfortable." His eyes moved over her face. "You spoke as though people deserved the truth, even when the truth was dangerous." "I began watching because of the cipher." His voice lowered. "I kept watching because you became the only calm thing in my life." Sarah's eyes burned. "You never knew whether I would choose you." "No." "And you still bought the lighthouse." "I would have bought the entire coast." She almost laughed through the emotion. "That is an alarming answer. I have worse ones." Sarah rose onto her toes and kissed him. For 1 second, Luca did not move. Then restraint shattered. His arms closed around her. The kiss deepened with years of denied obsession, but his hands remained careful at her waist, holding rather than claiming. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "If this goes wrong, it will not. You cannot forecast everything." "No." Sarah looked into his eyes. "But I can forecast you." The offshore station rose from the ocean like a rusted skeleton. Lightning flashed behind its towers. Waves crashed against steel supports. A helicopter circled above, its searchlight cutting through rain. Charles led Sarah across a narrow landing bridge. Vale's armed men waited inside. At the center of the operations room stood Adrian Vale, younger brother of the family patriarch and commander of the maritime network. He wore a gray suit beneath a raincoat and smiled without warmth. "Evelyn's daughter," he said. "You look like her. My mother's name was Elena." Names are tools. So are weather codes. Vale gestured toward a microphone. Speak the sequence. Screens displayed shipping routes across the Atlantic. Sarah saw dozens of hidden channels, weapons routes, human trafficking corridors, smuggling paths beneath humanitarian zones. Where is the boy? Vale nodded toward a monitor. Charles's son remained inside the container, alive, for now, Charles said bitterly. Vale looked amused. You betrayed one woman for your career, and another for your son. How noble desperation makes men feel. Charles's face collapsed. Sarah understood then that Vale had never intended to free the boy. She looked at the microphone. What phrase? Vale handed her a page. The words were written in her mother's code. When the moon is lost beneath the northern sea, let every harbor close its eyes. Sarah recognized the sequence. It did not open routes. It erased them. Her mother had created a final destruction command. Vale did not know. Sarah looked toward Charles. He read the realization in her eyes. Do it, he whispered. Vale raised his gun. Sarah leaned toward the microphone. When the moon is lost beneath the northern sea, outside, explosions shook the station. Luca had arrived. Gunfire erupted below. Vale grabbed Sarah by the hair and pulled her back. Finish it. Sarah looked toward the storm. Let every harbor remember. She changed the final word. The screens flashed. Every hidden route uploaded to international maritime authorities. Vale stared in horror. What did you do? Forecast the end of your network. He struck her. Sarah fell against the console. The door exploded inward. Luca entered through smoke. Blood covered one side of his face. His black coat was torn. He carried a weapon in each hand. His gaze found Sarah. Everything human left his expression. Vale dragged her upright and pressed a gun to her throat. Drop them. Luca stopped. Below them, the station burned. Helicopters circled through lightning. Drop the weapons, Vale repeated. Luca lowered both guns. Vale smiled. The great Luca Moretti, on his knees for a weather girl. Luca knelt. Sarah's heart broke at the sight. He did not look humiliated. He looked calm, terrifyingly calm. Vale tightened his arm around her. You bought a lighthouse for her. Yes. You lost 3 ports tonight. Yes. You exposed routes your family used for decades. Yes. For what? Luca looked at Sarah. For the first thing I ever wanted that was not built from fear. Vale laughed. Sarah saw Charles moving behind him. Vale did not. Charles lunged. The gun fired. Charles fell. Sarah twisted away. Luca crossed the room. He struck Vale with enough force to send him through a glass partition. Sarah ran to Charles. Blood spread beneath him. My son, he whispered. Gabriel has him. Charles's eyes filled with tears. Tell him. You will tell him. No. His hand closed around hers. I loved your mother. Sarah swallowed. You should have trusted her. I know. Charles died before the station began to collapse. A support beam tore loose overhead. Luca reached Sarah and pulled her away as metal crashed where she had been kneeling. We have to go. The boy? Safe. They ran toward the upper platform. Fire blocked the lower exit. Gabriel's voice came through Luca's radio. Helicopter on the roof. 90 seconds before the southern supports fail. They climbed through smoke. Vale appeared behind them, wounded but alive. He fired. The bullet struck Luca in the back. Sarah screamed. Luca fell to one knee. Vale raised the gun again. Sarah grabbed an emergency flare from the wall and fired it into a fuel line behind him. Flame erupted. Vale disappeared in the explosion. Sarah dragged Luca toward the roof access. He was heavy, but she refused to let him fall. You are leaving me, he said through clenched teeth. No. Sarah, you bought a lighthouse. He almost smiled, despite the blood. So? So I am not letting you die before I decide what to do with it. The roof door blew open. Wind nearly tore them apart. The helicopter hovered above the platform, unable to land. A rescue cable dropped through the rain. Sarah fastened the harness around Luca. "Together," he said. The station tilted beneath them. She clipped herself to him. The cable lifted them, just as the platform collapsed into the sea. For one impossible moment, they hung above the burning station. Lightning split the sky. Helicopters circled through the storm. Luca's arms closed around Sarah despite his wound, holding her against his chest as if he could shield her from the entire ocean. The image would later appear across every news network in the country. The feared Mafia Boss and the weather reporter suspended above a collapsing weapons station, while the lighthouse beam turned in the distance. Luca survived surgery. The bullet missed his spine by less than an inch. Sarah sat beside his hospital bed for 2 days. When he woke, he looked at her first. "You stayed?" "Yes." "Why?" She leaned back in the chair. "You are surprisingly insecure for a man who owns 3 ports. Tvo now. You lost another. I gave it away." "To whom?" "The federal task force dismantling Vale's network." Sarah stared at him. "You surrendered your shipping routes. The legal ones remain. And the others? Gone. Your family will not forgive you. They do not need to." "Why would you do that?" Luca looked toward the rain on the hospital window. "Because I spent my life believing power was the only thing that kept people alive." His eyes returned to hers. "Then I watched you walk into danger because a child mattered more than your fear." Sarah took his hand. "Power can protect people. It can also become the excuse for never trusting them." She smiled faintly. "You have been listening. Only to you." Weeks later, the truth about the maritime network became public. Charles Whitmore's crimes were exposed, but so was the fact that Vale had held his son hostage. The boy entered protected custody with relatives. Channel 8 offered Sarah the director's position. She refused. Instead, she created an independent coastal weather and maritime safety organization, using the Lighthouse as its headquarters. Luca transferred legal ownership to a public trust. He did not tell her he had done it until she found the documents. "You said you bought it for me," Sarah said. "I did." "Then why give it away?" "Because you should never have to belong to me to stand inside something I protected." The answer left her silent. Luca still frightened people. He still spoke quietly enough to make rooms obey. He still kept armed guards nearby and knew too many ways to make enemies disappear. But he learned to ask before placing security outside Sarah's home. He learned that her silence did not always mean danger. He learned that love was not measured by how tightly he could hold something. Sarah learned something too. Trusting Luca did not require pretending he was harmless. Loving him did not erase what he had done. It meant demanding that the man he became be stronger than the empire that had created him. 1 year after the storm, Sarah delivered the first live broadcast from the restored lighthouse. The sea was calm. The sky glowed gold over Black Harbor. She stood before the windows wearing the same red coat Luca had noticed years earlier. "Tonight," she told the camera, "the coast is clear. Visibility will remain high, and no severe systems are expected." Behind the camera, Luca watched. He had watched hundreds of her reports from dark rooms, distant cars, and guarded offices. This was the first time she had invited him to stand where she could see him. When the broadcast ended, Sarah walked toward him. "You are staring," she said. "I always do. That used to be unsettling. And now it is still unsettling." His expression almost softened. Sarah took his hand and led him up the spiral staircase. At the top of the lighthouse, the lantern turned around them. The Atlantic stretched dark and endless beneath the stars. Luca stood near the window, his scar visible above his collar. Sarah joined him. "What is the forecast?" he asked. "For tonight?" "For us," She considered him. Strong winds. I expected that. Occasional conflict. Certain. Periods of dangerous obsession. His hand settled at her waist. Unavoidable. Sarah smiled. But visibility is improving. Luca looked at her as though the world had narrowed to one point of light. I love you, he said. There was no performance in it. No possession. Only truth. Sarah touched his face. I know. That is not an answer. You waited 6 years. You can wait 6 seconds. His eyes darkened. She kissed him before he could count them. Outside, the lighthouse beam swept over the ocean. Once, the light had carried secrets. It had guided weapons through storms and warned criminals when the coast was blind. Now it carried something else, a promise that danger could be seen. That power could choose restraint, that a woman who had spent her life forecasting storms could still be surprised by love, and that the most feared man on the coast had not bought the lighthouse to imprison her inside it. He had bought it because, long before Sarah ever knew his name, her voice had been the only light capable of leading him home.